What is going on, everybody? It is Bert, aka The Pod, bringing you our initial episode of what I like to call the Pod's Precon Patch Up. Today, we're going to talk about a Precon, specifically Eowyn, Shieldmaiden, and how we can make that Precon just a little bit more focused on that commander instead of the typical Precon style where there are a couple of different strategies going on at the same time. So first I wanted to talk a little bit about the why I wanted to start the Precon patch up. Typically when I build decks, I usually build them from scratch. So I start with the commander and then I get the 99 by building around it. So I wanted to take that and apply that to Precons as if I was building a pre-constructed deck. The deck is going to be around the same price as if you were buying it out of the box. So the Eowyn deck is worth about $70 right now. So this deck is going to be around $70 if you wanted to pick it up. And like I said, it is a little bit more focused on a particular central strategy. So it'll be a little bit better out of the box. So the sections that we're going to be going over while we do this Precon patch up are going to be stuff like card draw, removal, protection, board wipes, enablers, enhancers, and of course, ramp. Let's go ahead and go into the card draw section, where we'll talk about a couple of the cards that I've included in the deck. To start off with, let's go ahead and talk about Mass Appeal. It is a 3 mana, 2 and a blue for a sorcery, and it's going to say that we draw a card for each human we control. You'll see this card a lot in Eowyn decks, and for good reason. This has the potential to draw us a bunch of cards, but it can end up being a divination even if we needed to. It's going to get us the cards that we need. In a similar vein, we also have Distant Melody. It's going to be 3 and a blue for a sorcery that says choose a creature type and draw cards equal to that creature type. Let's just say we're going to choose humans all the time here. Now, since we're talking about cards that care about creature types, let's go ahead and talk about Kindred Discovery. 3 blue for an enchantment. As Kindred Discovery enters the battlefield, choose a creature type. Whenever a creature you control of the chosen type enters the battlefield or attacks, draw a card. This is so much draw power, and it recently came down to about $8, and I feel like it's an auto include in this particular deck. In typo decks, it's just so much card draw, and we need it when we have our hasty boys and they're just gonna attack. Do note that this is not a May trigger, so you're gonna have to keep an eye out on your library while you're swinging with your creatures. Next, we're gonna talk about Chivalric Alliance. 1 and a white for an enchantment that says whenever you attack with 2 or more creatures, draw a card. Listen, we're going to be attacking a lot in this deck, so this has a chance for us to draw a bunch of cards. Not only that, but you can discard a card and pay 2 mana to create a white-blue knight token. Unfortunately, it does not have that human creature type. Despite that, though, I think it's a really good card to include in our deck, and I do think that it'll continue to do work for us. The next couple of cards aren't going to be as, let's say, impressive as the cards that I've listed so far, but they are going to be cards that give us a lot of cards over the course of the game, or just a lot of burst draw. So first, I would like to talk about Thirst for Discovery. It's 2 and a blue for an instant. Draw 3 cards, then discard 2 cards unless you discard a basic land. We have plenty of basics in this deck, and drawing 3 cards is just huge, okay? So we're going to get those cards that we need and be able to progress our board state with the cards that we draw. Next, we're going to have Idol of Oblivion, 2 mana for an artifact. Tap, draw a card, activate only if you've created a token this turn. Again, our commander makes tokens, we make tokens in the deck. This is just going to be a lot of card draw over the course of the game. Our opponents are going to hate that they have to get rid of this because we're drawing so many cards off of it. Cut a Deal is 2 and a white for a sorcery. Each opponent draws a card, and you draw a card for each opponent who drew a card this way. Well, we're going to be drawing a lot of cards off this, typically 3. 3 mana for 3 cards is above rate, and I just think that it's a very good card for our deck. It makes our opponents happier so we can make deals with them in the future. Last but not least, we have Charter Course, 1 and a blue for a sorcery. Draw 2 cards, then discard a card unless you attacked with a creature this turn. We're going to be doing a lot of attacking in this deck, and this is just a simple draw spell that gets us 2 cards when we need them. Next, let's talk about the removal section, where we included cards to get rid of problem permanents on our opponent's side of the board. First card on our list is Path to Exile. 1 white for an instant. Exile target creature, its controller may search their library for a basic land card, put it on the battlefield tap, then shuffle. Giving our opponent a land isn't really going to matter in the long run, but getting rid of that creature, that problem creature, is. So we need removal that's going to get rid of creatures that we can't deal with, so we can get through with our tokens and our commander. Next is going to be Chaos Warp. 2 and a red for an instant. The owner of target permanent shuffles it into their library and reveals the top card of their library. If it's a permanent card, they put it onto the battlefield. This is here so we can get rid of some of the more problem permanents, such as like enchantments or artifacts. Even big indestructible creatures we can get rid of. So it's just there to get rid of something that gives us an issue of removing it. Next we have Wear and Tear. Wear is 1 and a red for an instant, destroy target artifact. Tear is 1 white for an instant, destroy target enchantment. This card also has the Fuse ability that allows you to cast both sides at the same time. So you can Wear and Tear and destroy a target artifact and enchantment. This card is just really good and efficient at getting rid of problem permanents, and it just makes it so that we have an option for either one. Sometimes you might cast one half and not the other, but that option is always there. For our next card, we have Dismantling Blow. 2 and a white for an instant with Kicker for 2 and a blue. Destroy target artifact or enchantment. If this spell was kicked, draw 2 cards. This card is here mostly just because it's another way to get rid of artifacts and enchantments, and it also gives us a way to draw cards in the late game. Next we have Generous Gift. 2 and a white for an instant. Destroy target permanent. Its controller creates a 3/3 green elephant creature token. This is just so we can get rid of pretty much any problem permanent. That elephant creature token could be a problem, but it can't block Eowyn, so we're not really worried about giving that to our opponent. Now we have our Palace Jailer. 2 white for a creature, human soldier. When Palace Jailer enters the battlefield, you become the monarch. And when he enters the battlefield, exile target creature an opponent controls until an opponent becomes the monarch. It introduces monarch to the game, and it also lets us remove something until it's not a problem anymore, basically. We can keep the monarch for a while from that token generation, and we can just block and block until we let our opponent take the monarch. Next we have Devout Chaplain. 2 and a white for a creature human cleric. We can tap 2 untapped human creatures you control. Exile target artifact or enchantment. The exile here is really strong, and it's just another way for us to get rid of something that may have indestructible or another problem permanent that we just have to get rid of. It's repeatable, and it's just really good for our deck. Next, let's go ahead and go into the protection section. We're going to talk about cards that protect our cards from our opponent's effect. There are only a couple of cards here, so let's get into it. Here I want to talk about 3 different cards: Boros Charm, Unbreakable Formation, and Boromir, Warden of the Tower. Let's start with Boros Charm. It's red and a white for an instant. Choose one. Boros Charm deals 4 damage to target player or planeswalker. Permanents you control gain indestructible until end of turn, or target creature gains double strike until end of turn. Here we're more so focused on that indestructibility that it gives, but it also has upsides just in case you need it in other places, so it's not a dead card in hand if you don't need to protect your stuff right away. We also have Unbreakable Formation, 2 and a white for an instant. Creatures you control gain indestructible until end of turn. And it also has Addendum, so if you cast it during your main phase, you put a +1 counter on each of those creatures and they gain Vigilance until end of turn. It's just really good. It gives us an impression of Teferi's of Protection almost. But let's also talk about Boromir, Warden of the Tower. It's a new card. 2 and a white for a legendary creature, human soldier. It has Vigilance. Whenever an opponent casts a spell, if no mana was spent to cast it, counter that spell. That's just upside. But we can sacrifice Boromir, Warden of the Tower. Creatures you control gain indestructible until end of turn. The ring tempts you. We don't really have too much to go for the ring, but that indestructibility that it gives is just chef's kiss. So our next section is going to be on board wipes, where we're focusing on cards to get rid of our opponent's board states so that we can prosper. The 2 cards I want to talk about here are going to be Supreme Verdict and Austere Command. Supreme Verdict is going to be 1 white and a blue for sorcery. The spell can't be countered. Destroy all creatures. We need this just sometimes so we can reset the board and we can get Eowyn back out so we can start building up our board state. Opposite to that, we have Austere Command. 4 white for sorcery. It has choose 2. Destroy all artifacts. Destroy all enchantments. Destroy all creatures with mana value 3 or less. Destroy all creatures mana value 4 or greater. So this just gives us options when it comes to clearing the board. We can either keep Eowyn so we can make more board, or we can just keep the tokens and our smaller mana value creatures, and we can just get rid of all the artifacts, all the enchantments. Choose 2, so be careful on those choices, but this is a really good card for us and it'll help us out a lot. Next, I would like to go over a section of cards I call enablers. These are going to enable Eowyn to make her tokens. So we have about 4 cards that we want to get out early, so that we can trigger Eowyn's ability right as she comes in and get those hasty boys. Let's get into it. So first, let's talk about Outlaw's Merriment, one of my favorite cards in the deck. It's 1 red, white for an enchantment. At the beginning of your upkeep, choose 1 at random. Create a red and white creature token with those characteristics. We can either get a 3/1 warrior with trample and haste, a 2/1 cleric with lifelink and haste, or a 1/2 human rogue with haste, and when it enters the battlefield, it deals 1 to any target. This comes down the turn before Eowyn and will trigger her every turn after that. So it's just an awesome card to have. Even if we get a late game, it's gonna trigger Eowyn, so it frees up our mana from casting other humans that we can use to maybe just draw some cards or get rid of some permanents. So this card is really good. Next, I have Adeline Resplendent Cathar. 1 white for a legendary creature, human knight. It has Vigilance, and Adeline Resplendent Cathar's power is equal to the number of creatures you control. Whenever you attack for each opponent, create a 1/1 human creature token that's tapped and attacking that player or planeswalker they control. So this card, the trigger is a little bit late for Eowyn. It won't actually trigger Eowyn, but what it does do is it comes down on turn 3, and when you attack, it creates more and more human tokens. So the idea is that we'll have 6 humans and draw a card from Eowyn as Adeline attacks. Adeline's just a really strong card. They get bigger for each creature that we control. It's just a strong card and does really good work in our deck. Next, we have Losanark Captain. 3 and a white for a creature, human soldier. They have first strike. Whenever a Losanart captain or another human enters the battlefield under your control, tap target creature and opponent's controls. And then it also has the upside of, at the beginning of your upkeep, create a 1/1 white human soldier creature token. So we play this on turn 4, turn 5, we get a human soldier and we trigger Eowyn because a human entered the battlefield. It's really good, and also tapping down whenever humans, which is all of our deck, comes into play is just beautiful, and it'll open up a lot of combat for us. Next, we'll look at a small but effective card, Rally at the Hornburg. 1 and a red for a sorcery, create 2 1/1 white human soldier creature tokens. Humans you control gain haste until end of turn. Really what we're playing this for is the haste effect. The soldiers are nice. They are humans, so they do trigger Eowyn if she is on the battlefield. But really we want that haste for some of our creatures that don't have it. And it just enables some powerful plays, some powerful combats. Next, let's go over what I like to call enhancers. These are going to be cards that enhance our board state and our strategy, either by giving some kind of buff or just increasing what we want to do in the strategy. Let's get to it. First up, we have Theoden, King of Rohan. 1 red and a white for a legendary creature, human noble. Whenever Theoden, King of Rohan, or another human enters the battlefield under our control, target creature gains double strike until end of turn. We're going to be playing a lot of humans, so this is just going to be a powerhouse in our deck. Here we have Intrepid Adversary. 1 and a white for a creature human scout. It has lifelink, and when Intrepid Adversary enters the battlefield, you may pay 1 and a white any number of times. When you pay this cost 1 or more times, put that many Valor counters on Intrepid Adversary. Creatures you control get +1/+1 for each Valor counter on Intrepid Adversary. Just an awesome card to boost up our creatures. It has lifelink, it's a 3/1. It gives creatures +1/+1 that does apply to it. It's just a really good card for us to have in our deck. Here we have Blade Historian, 4 hybrid Boros for a creature human cleric that is a 2/3. Attacking creatures you control have double strike. It comes down to turn right before Eowyn, and it's just going to give those hasted trample tokens a little bit more power. All-star card in our deck. Talking about all-stars, here we have Frontier Warmonger. 3 and a red for a creature human warrior, that's a 4/4. Whenever 1 or more creatures attack one of your opponents or a planeswalker they control, those creatures gain menace until end of turn. Listen, we want as many keywords as we possibly can have, menace being a premium one in our deck. Overall, it just means that we get to attack a little bit more safely. Next, we have Baron God of the Guard, 3 and a white for a legendary creature human soldier, that's a 3/3. Whenever he or another human enters the battlefield under our control, creatures you control get +1/+1 and gain vigilance until end of turn. Another keyword that will help out our deck a lot, and that +1/+1 can add up quickly and to destroy our opponents. Next, let's quickly go over some ramp cards that's going to help us cast our spells and get our commander out a little bit early. So let's go over some mana rocks that I've included in the deck. Soul Ring is just a good card in every deck. Arcane Signet, Commander Sphere, Mind Stone, and Felwar Stone are all good, but we also included the 2 talismans that were included in the Precon, Talisman of Conviction and Talisman of Progress, but we've also completed the set and added Talisman of Creativity just to have the set. Next, we will go over and talk about Weathered Wayfarer. It's 1 white mana for a 1/1 creature human nomad cleric. 1 white, tap, search your library for a land card, reveal it and put it into your hand, then shuffle. Activate only if an opponent controls more lands than you. So it's going to let us play catch up most of the game, but it also is a late game trigger for Eowyn just in case we need one. So that's what I have for our Precon patch-up deck tech. Let me know what you think of the deck. Be sure to check out the deck list to see the actual 99 of the deck so that you can see what cards I didn't mention, and let me know what you think about those either on Moxfield or in the comments below. Thank you for watching and have a wonderful day.